မင်္ဂလာပါ
See all the temples are hollow type, which is you can walk through in the temple, or the solid type, which you can't walk through inside either.
Can you explain what does Doh Eain do?
So Doh Eain is a social enterprise working on the restoration, placemaking, and the capacity building, and then the community engagement. So we are a Yangon-based social enterprise, and we have looked into restoration of old buildings and the placemaking of the public spaces like alleyways. So this building, which have 6 units, which resembles very well with what our ambition is. So first we got the office space that we renovated, and we use it as our office space. And from that contact, we got that building, that unit, which is interested in our model to work with us. So we renovated that soon after a while that we did the office. So which in this building we have 2 apartments. And then last month we got contact by the person above our office, who is also willing to renovate his apartment with our business model. So as in Doh Eain, we started this restoration as a very small scale to each individual apartment, and then now with our impact, which could potentially be the restoration of the whole building. So now we are doing the facade repair. As you can see here, these walls have been swallowed a lot of water for decades. So these waters have been breathed out into the interior of the building, and to prevent that, we have to taken out all the plaster and all soft plasterings, and then we gotta make it dry, and then we gotta replaster the whole and waterproof it and replaster the whole facade to make it dry. So now we're in the condition to repair the whole back facade.
So why are there so many old houses in Yangon?
We have quite a large amount of old buildings which were left by the colonial era, which a lot of them are structurally not in a very sound position anymore because of the time frame that had been left without any renovation and the repairing. The buildings are built in a very advanced methods in the old times, and it's structurally it is very good structure in the beginning, but after the decades of neglect and people are not paying attention to repair these buildings, and also the financial constraints from the building owners, which caused the building into these stages. So I think that's also in Yangon, a lot of the old colonial buildings have different owners and different unit owners in the buildings, which means, for example, one colonial building could possibly have 16 different unit owners, which caused a little bit difficult for them to preserve the building as a whole because they only own each unit. So for example, if there's a roof problem or the common staircase is deteriorating or things like that, it is difficult for them to conserve the building because they only have the authority to conserve their own unit. So that's one of the problems here.
So what does it cost to restore a back alley?
So the budget for each alleyways depends on the alleyways itself, but it's around 10,000 to 15,000 US dollar. So the funding it could come from the donor, and 80% of the total budget is come from the donors, and then 20% we collected from the community, who would like to contribute their money into their space.
I see. So how do local people respond to your projects?
It's very positive. We mainly work with the community and people who live in these alleyways to work together. So we call it as a asset-based participatory design approach, we work together with the community to find out what are the problems are, what are their needs in these alleyway, and how they want to use the space at the back of the house in future. So we invite a lot of people, residents, from kids to adults to old people to have to cover a lot of inputs, and from there we do the surveys and we do community workshops and participatory design workshops to actually make the critical decisions how we can repurpose these spaces into a valuable and usable spaces.
So how do you get funding?
As Doh Eain.
No funding.
Funding
Yes.
to alleyways or
Yes.
the restoration?
Alleyways. Yes.
So the funding for the alleyways could come from the donors, which could be private partners or the embassies or the seed funding. The community will organize workshops or the things that can generate money for the sustainability of these alleyways. So for example, if a tourist or a walking tour is happening in these alleyways, or a commercial wants to be shot inside our alleyways, people can donate the money for the maintenance of these alleyways.
So what restoration has Doh Eain completed so far?
What types?
Yes.
So we have 21 projects so far in terms of restoration. Mostly are the residentials. So we work from one unit apartments in the colonial building to 3-story colonial buildings, which were in bad condition and now repurposed into a modern function, and then with the conservations. Before, people doesn't realize how valuable these colonial buildings are. For example, if before the renovation, which the buildings are really in bad states, the potential rent or the potential money that can be generated by that property will be quite low. And then once we invested the capital to do the conservation and restoration, the money that can be generated after our renovation could be even 10 times more than what they will get before the renovation. So that's one of the advantages that what our business model bring into the community of Yangon to conserve these buildings. For the homeowners, before our business model, the options that they have would be selling their property to a developer to develop a new modern 8-story building or a very standard apartment building, and then they will get one unit for their unit. So what we like to conserve is not only the building itself, but also the intangible heritage which will be lying around that building that they've been dwelling in for 4 or 5 generations. So we conserve the property heritage and as well as the intangible heritage of the families.
So which restoration are planned in the future?
In future, we would like to look at more in the whole building types, which we find it will get more impact in the city as in a city. So we would like to look at the buildings which have 4 to 5 units in one building to conserve, so that the restoration can be done the whole building as a whole, which will have more impact in the cityscape.
Great, that's great.
Great.
Thanks. I hope you succeed, that more money is going to go into preserving these buildings, because this will make Yangon unique in the whole of Southeast Asia, because the other Southeast Asian, Singapore is like all modern, isn't it? And it's just all the same. It's all homogenized, isn't it? And
I've also heard people describe them as like cities that don't have a heart anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear a lot, like in Singapore, the few buildings that they have left is such a
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is all hard. I mean, it's not like you preserved it to the original state, but you made it something new with the people in mind, as you say. It's also the fact that you consult the people here. It's not like you just impose it on them. It's something that comes from the community, and that, you know, so it's,
That's what makes
yeah,
something last and makes it sustainable.
yeah.
I hope you guys enjoyed this video about Doh Eain. Please leave a comment below and bye bye. See you next time.